All right, this lesson is about adding and subtracting rational expressions. These all have the same denominator. So last time, let's just figure out where we are. Where we are, we simplified, multiplied, and divided. And now we're going to start the process of adding and subtraction. So just like when you learn to add and subtract fractions, you have to have common denominators. So we're going to start with ones that all have common denominators, and then we'll move on to next class to where there's different. Okay, so on the first one, we're just adding, since they both have a denominator of 15, the denominator stays the same, and then we add the numerators. 6 and 4 is 10, so we get 10x. If we can reduce it, then we want to reduce it. Those are both divisible by 5, and so that's going to give us 2x over 3. On the next one, this time we're subtracting, and we need to change that plus to a plus, or excuse me, that minus to a plus and negative. The denominator stays the same, and then we add the numerators. 3n and negative 7n is negative 4n, and now we can reduce, and that gives me negative 1n or negative n over 3 when I divide them both by 4, and that would be my answer. Okay, let's see what happens on number 3. The denominator this time is x plus 4, but since it's the same, just like the ones above, we're going to keep the same denominator, and now we're going to add the numerators. But x and 5 are not like terms, so we can't combine them. We just write x plus 5. Now, because these have pluses and minuses, before we could simplify, we need to factor. But neither one of these factor, and they're not matching groups, so they're not going to cancel out. That's just our final answer. Okay, let's go to number 4. Again, the denominators match, so they're both going to be x plus 5. And now we need to add the numerators. So x and 2x would give us 3x. Negative 5 and negative 3 is negative 8. Now, we could see if the top factors any, but it doesn't, so there's nothing that can simplify. But because they have plus and minuses, they're groups, and these groups don't match exactly, so you can't reduce them. All right, let's look at number 5. Now, number 5, we need to be careful because it's a minus. And when it's a minus, we're not just changing the first thing to a plus, or excuse me, to a minus. We're changing the sign of everything in the second fraction on top. So the bottom, change colors here, the bottom is x minus 1. On the top, once I've changed the signs, 3x and negative 2x is x. 2 plus 4 is 6. Again, there's pluses and minuses, so they're groups, but you can't factor them, so we're done. All right, number 6, the denominator is x plus 1, so it's going to stay x plus 1. We're going to add the numerators. We get 2x plus 2. Okay, if it factors, we want to go ahead and do that. I can factor it by taking out the greatest common factor, and I get x plus 1. The bottom doesn't factor. It's got a plus sign, so it's a group. And look, now we have matching groups. So this simplifies to 2. They're not going to simplify a ton, but they will simplify sometimes, and you've got to be diligent about looking for that and keeping track of those. Okay, on the bottom, we get 1 minus 4y. On the top, it's adding, so we're just going to keep the same signs for everything, combine like terms. 4y and 2y is 6y. Negative 1 and 3 is 2. Now, the top does factor. I can take out a 2, and that leaves me with 3y plus 1. But 3y plus 1 is not going to reduce with 1 minus 4y, so we can just leave our final answer this way. All right, let's look at number 8. Now, before we do number 8, because it's a minus, we're going to change it to a plus and then change the sign of everything in the top numerator on the right. Okay, now we can combine like terms. So the bottom stays your x minus 2, and the top, 3x and negative x, is 2x, and 4 and 1 is 5. That doesn't factor. They're not matching groups, so we're done. On number 9, it's a minus sign, so we're going to change it to a plus and then change the sign of everything in that right numerator. And now, when we add them together, our denominator is x minus 3, and the numerator, 7x and negative x, would be 6x, and 9 plus 5 is 14. You can factor out a 2, and that's going to leave me with 3x plus 7. That doesn't factor, so, or excuse me, doesn't reduce with the bottom, so I can't go any further. All right, last one. They look like they don't match, but when we do these, and this is going to be important in our next lesson, to figure out the matching denominators, everything has to be factored. So on number 10, if I factor this, I can do that by taking out an x, and I get x plus 3. And look, now they're matching. So it really is the same denominator. So it's x times x plus 3. It's addition, so I don't have to change signs. 2x and 3x is 5x. And 1 and -8 is -7. And that doesn't factor. And so we are done. And because this is a minus, this becomes a group. That's why we can't break it apart any. All right, in class, after we do these problems, we're going to do a quick review. And I don't have a notes page for it. We're just going to turn this page over and add to it some review problems. So we want to add to these, to what we just did as a review. Okay, so each time they're asking us a different thing to do, so we got to pay attention. On the first one, they just want us to factor. Okay, so we first look for a greatest common factor. There isn't one. We decide if it's a binomial or a trinomial. It's a trinomial. The leading coefficient is 2, so it's not 1. So that means we got to split the middle term. So do that. We're going to take 2 times -21, which is -42. And now we're looking for two numbers that multiply to -42 and add to -1. And those numbers would be -7 and 6. So now we're going to rewrite it, splitting this middle term into -7 and 6. So I have 2x squared minus 7x plus 6x minus 21. Okay, now I want to see what I can factor out of the first two terms, and I can take out an x. And when I take out the x, I have 2x minus 7. Sign in the middle comes straight down. Now I want to see what I can factor out of these. I can take out a 3. 6x divided by 3 is 2x. -21 divided by 3 is -7. Now my parentheses match. So I have 2x minus 7, and then a parentheses of what was split, the x plus 3. Okay, number 2. Number 2 wants me to write the domain and simplify. Well, to do both, everything has to be factored. So let's focus on factoring first. On the top, this is a binomial. So this is going to factor to x plus 5, x minus 5. On the bottom, before I can pick a factoring pattern, I take out the greatest common factor of x. So I'm going to do that first. And now I'm going to factor it. And the two numbers that multiply to 20 and add to 9 would be 5 and 4. Now there's two things that we have to do. First is the domain, and second is the simplified form. Okay? You have to do the domain before you simplify. The domain are all real numbers except what makes the denominator 0. So it's anything that except what makes the denominator 0. So we're going to put all real numbers. And now we're going to look what makes this x 0. Well, just 0. So x can't equal 0. What makes this parentheses 0? -5. And this parentheses -4. We don't care what's in the numerator. For the domain, all you're looking at is what makes the denominator 0. And you can't determine that until you have factored. Okay, now the simplified form. I have the matching groups of x plus 5. So my final answer is on top, I'm going to have x minus 5. And over here, I have x times x plus 4. All right, let's try number 3. Number 3 wants us to find the product, which means to multiply. But to do that, we have to factor. So let's see if we can factor this. 4x minus 8 looks like it doesn't factor, but it does. I can take out the greatest common factor of 4, and I get x minus 2. On the bottom, x squared minus 16 is going to be x plus 4, x minus 4 times, oh, this is supposed to be a 12. I apologize. Okay, so now I need two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 7. Well, that would be 3 and 4. And then this factors, I can take out not just a 2, but a 2x, and that leaves me with x plus 4. Okay, let's be careful because we can only cancel 1 for 1. So yes, we've got x plus 4s, but I have 1 on the top, so I can cancel just 1 on the bottom. Nothing else will cancel. But that's the groups. But now let's look at this. These are not groups, those are individuals. And if I have something on the top and the bottom, I can reduce that. So the 4 and 2 can reduce. And now I can write my final answer. So on the top, I get 2 times x minus 2 times x plus 3. And on the bottom, I get x plus 4 times x minus 4. Oh, and don't forget about this. There's an x out there. If you have individual things, you want to put them before the groups. Now compare this to what we just did. What we just did was adding and subtracting. Adding and subtracting, when the denominators are the same, we just add and subtract. We're not doing anything. So because it's a minus, I'm going to change this to a plus and then change the sign of everything in the top right. Okay, now I can combine them. So my denominator stays the same, x minus 2, and now I'm going to combine my numerator. 6x and negative 2x is 4x, negative 3 and negative 5 is negative 8. Now we have to see, does this top factor? It does. I can factor out a 4, and that leaves me with x minus 2. And on the bottom, I have an x minus 2 as well. So those cancel, and my final answer is 4. So this is a good review to show the difference between the different types of problems. Next time, we're going to add and subtract. When we add and subtract, the denominators won't be the same. So we're going to have to make them the same first, and then we can add or subtract them.